report generation models hold up when the image quality drops. So why test report robustness? Report generators are deployed on chest x-rays that vary a lot. So this includes exposure, positioning, and motion. Here's how we framed it. If the image is bad, the report should say so, meaning that a radiologist that's been handed a poor image should write limited by motion. That part changing is correct behavior, but what shouldn't change is the diagnosis itself. So we measure two things separately. Does the finding hold, and does the model recognize poor image quality? Prior work covers synthetic augmentation, real image artifacts, and report evaluation. But what is missing is a link between real-world image unusualness and specific report failures. So before we degraded anything, we ran 3 synthetic images through the models. As you can see here, we have a cartoon chest, the moon, and a bunch of lines. From this, we saw that 5 of 6 models wrote a confident and structured radiology report anyways. As you can see, the moon has myelocardiomegaly and left rib fractures. This shows that a fluent report is not necessarily evidence that the model looked at a chest x-ray. So now Ryan is going to show us what the real images in the dataset look like.
Every year in the US, at least 4 chest x-rays are taken. So there's a variability within the real data. This is a presentation on a UMAP scale, but as you see here, we have one that is entirely mislabeled. It was labeled as PA, but it was lateral. And of course, we have clinical features being different: contrast, brightness, rotation. So moving on, how do we simulate data being anomalous? With the resources we have, we can't exactly ask someone to go back in and shift their body. So between a literature search and a comparison to our cohort, we checked the impact of different artificial perturbations, from rotation to motion blur to clipping to various JPEG quality and even inversion. So as you see here, this lets us tune how anomalous the synthetic image is with grounding of real clinical data. And obviously, depending on the image, the impact of a perturbation may be different. Slide.
So here's one example. The human radiologist reported here a bilateral pleural effusions. On the clean image, the model found a small left pleural effusion, and when we rotated that same image 10 to 15 degrees, which is routine and nobody reshoots for it, the model now says that the left lung is clear with no pleural effusion. The finding is completely gone, right? So there's no hedging, and there's also no comment about image quality either, so nothing in the report is telling the reader that anything changed. And this also happens at scale. So this is the erasure rate, which means the clean report naming a finding and the perturbed report dropping it. Across 4 models and 5 conditions, erasure runs between 30 and 70%. Motion blur is the worst, at around 53% on average and 71% for one model. Erasure is also much more common than hallucination across every condition, which means that these models are deleting findings rather than inventing them. And about 15% of the findings that did survive came back with the laterality swapped, meaning, for instance, left was reported as right. So the finding disappears, and the question now is whether the report warns you about it at all. We ran the full severity grid on 2 models. It was the most expensive run we did, and compute was the constraint here. This table is the change in how often reports contained hedging language, which goes from a clean image to the most severe level of each perturbation. Model A responded to underexposure and only underexposure. It goes up by almost 9 points, and it says so explicitly. For instance, the lung bases are not included in the image. Model E responds to JPEG compression, but under motion blur it went the opposite way. Hedging dropped by almost 13 points as the blur got worse, meaning that as the image degraded, the model got more confident. On measurement, we also validated our hedging detection against a published lexicon, specifically Calendar 2020, which reproduced its own published rate on our human reports, which was 24.7 for us against their 29%. An LLM check on 600 reports also agreed on the direction and size. So that was 2 models on images that we degraded. Ryan is going to show now the same patterns on images we did not touch.
Okay, so eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed, wait, how do you take image abnormality and make it to one number? You make a metric. So to do that, we picked a cohort that was relatively stable, adult age, PA view, no finding, and we threw out the mislabeled results. And then through transformation, we were able to do a nearest neighbor clustering in Euclidean space. And we also split them into quintiles so that we could evaluate the performance of the models by quintile as well. And look at all these UMAP plots. So you love UMAP plots. Anyway, next. Okay, so now we have the quintiles. What do they mean? As you can see, generally, this is very exciting because some of our plots higher is better, some lower is better. Generally speaking, with one exception I'll get to, hey, more anomalous images do worse at the model. Wow. We noticed that some surface features were different. For example, mean brightness of the image was more variant in the anomalous images, but it's within normal bounds. It's not like it's just the brightness that it's looking at. So looking at our metrics, we see pretty consistently a mild decrease in performance, the more anomalous in images, with one exception. It's so weird that for pneumothorax, the BERT F1 score goes up as the image gets more anomalous. And on manual inspection, it turns out that BERT score was reading the presence and absence, stated explicitly, pneumothorax or no pneumothorax, both as a hit, but radgraph and gamma were able to find that discrepancy. Next. So we built an anomaly metric. That's the big takeaway here. We wanted to make sure that if we're doing synthetic augmentation, that it is grounded for clinical, and that also paves way for future work, to spoil a little bit. We were only able to compute so much. We may have used Judy's budget, but we only had so much compute time. And we had some DICOM issues, and only were able to inspect about 10% of the reports with an LM. So what we want to do future is we want to validate this. We did chest x-rays. We believe this methodology would work generally. We got to check. Also, hey, we have this metric and we have anomalies. What if we can make more realistic anomalies using the embeddings and image generation? Automatically. So thank you, Kitty Lab. Thank you, Judy. I can owe you $20,000 in compute. Thank you to Rohan.
And also to our hardworking Team 3 members, the Hallucinators.
And Dileep out in the corner. he got pulled to work on some course generation, so he worked on a course data set. Thank him specifically.
Thank you.
There is 1 minute and 53 seconds for questions.
We're that good at presenting, eh?
All right. Judges, any questions?
There's a question, one question.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more.
There's no mic.
I was just going to say, I don't expect we have like a concrete answer for this, but if you were to devise some way of possibly correcting anomaly in images, do you have any thoughts on if that would be possible, if that would be easily detectable or reversible, or something of that kind of clinical significance?
Well, some of them are easier than others. Obviously, it's easier to make an image messier than to make it cleaner. For some of the things that we notice on manual inspection, contrast, adjust the contrast. Rotation, normalize the rotation. For things that involve there's a very strong possibility if we try to use the same method used to augment training or validation data with anomalies and try to run it in reverse, that we would just end up having artificially benign images. The data set was heavily class imbalanced, anywhere from data set 4 new, but 70–80% of it was no finding. So we would expect something that makes something less anomalous also to remove findings.
Yeah, so that's
use with care.
Yeah, so it's definitely like our next step. I think some of these things are correctable, obviously, like Ryan says, like rotation, brightness, contrast, but some of these aren't. So for instance, when you have a case where there is motion blur, or quantization, a lot of times the only thing that you can do is to reshoot. And in the case where these models are screening upstream of human quality checks, a lot of times if the finding itself is deleted, what is there to check? Because a lot of times we think, oh, the model must be hallucinating, so we can double check that. But in these cases, a lot of times you need something that is flagging, oh, this image quality is not reliable, so the report is thus not going to be as reliable.
So practically speaking, the answer is the model tells you to take the image again. That's way to correct an anomaly.
Thank you guys. Thank you.